Yeah, I've been on the road to riches, hitting every bump on every avenue. Hit the ceiling glass and I've been crashing through. Coach Ray, put me onto the plays. Every episode play, got me ready for the game. Coach Ray speaks. 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 Coach Ray speaks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Coach Ray Speaks. I'm Ray Baxter. I'm your host. And before we bring in our guest for this evening, I'd like to take the time to talk to you about your marketing. We're going to do a segment called the Coach Ray 2-Minute Drill. Yes, it comes from a football background, but this drill is more along the lines of a marketing drill. Just giving you some tips, tools, and techniques and what you should do perhaps for your business. Many businesses focus on attracting new customers, but they need, especially in these times, to focus on retaining your current or your former customers. These are people that you already know. These are people that have already purchased from you, that trust you, that are comfortable with you. Instead of taking the time to sell old products to new customers, why not sell new products to old customers? You'll see a difference in your sales. You'll see a difference in your customer quality. You'll definitely see a difference in your branding. Now, to retain your current customers, you've got to stay in touch with them. That's number one. You got to give a post-purchase assurance. Don't abandon someone just because you made a sale to them. Offer the best deals that you have to your existing or your old customers. And finally, integrity. Use good, solid business practices. Stop wasting time on new customers while your current customers or your old customers fall by the wayside. That was Coach Ray's 2-Minute Drill. We'll be back with our guest for this week. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Coach Ray Speaks. We are broadcasting again from home, as we always do with COVID, unfortunately. Kind of miss the studio, but that's life right now with the things happening with the pandemic. The gentleman that I have on with us today is not only an actor, he's an educator and a football coach. We have kindred spirits, by the way. And by the way, to be honest, got to let you all know that I've known this gentleman for quite a long period of time, but I didn't know a lot of this about him. So I'm going to read to you a few things that I found out. Now, Carl Seaton, the director of shows such as FBI, Chicago PD, Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, and Batwoman, says of this gentleman, he has a natural presence that effortlessly pulls you into a story. Steven Van Zandt, award-winning musician, says about him, he has impressive versatility. Three-time Tony Award winner Dennis Grinaldi, quote, "The commitment to his work and generosity to other actors sharing a scene is a rare treat." Others, such as Victor Pastore from the Sopranos, Rick Zahn, Jodie Foster, Michael Gigante. He's worked with some of the greatest, some of the best. He's worked on shows such as Gotham. He's done episodes of FBI. I can go on and on. He's done also the show Bull on CBS. And he was also, I'm not sure this is a recurring role for him. He'll let us know. He's also in the Netflix award-winning series Orange is the New Black. So ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know him, you know him now. This is Mr. Warren Bubble. We welcome here to Coach Ray Speaks.
Thank you so much for having me, Ray. I really, really appreciate it. It's so good to reconnect with you, and I'm so happy for your new platform, your show that you're doing. I think it's great. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. You know, I was reading, like I said, I've known you a long time. I think over 20 years.
Over 20 years.
I never knew that you acted. So this is all brand new for me. There's a quote that in your bio, you said, "Without family, who are you?" And that, as I know you, that goes to the basis of who you are. Can you tell me what that quote means to you?
Yeah, sure. No matter what you do in life, I don't care if you're an actor, if you're a football coach, if you're a surgeon, a lawyer, a judge, a police officer, whatever you do as far as your career, careers are very important in your life. Obviously, everybody needs a career to survive, but at the end of the day, you need your family, because like the quote says, without family, who are you? You're just an empty person. Whether your family is large, whether you have a two-person family, which some people just have a very small family. Some people are fortunate enough to have a gigantic family. I have a decent sized family of about maybe, say 8 to 15 people that are included in my family circle. And they're all also friends too. I consider them family, right. But you need your family. You need a support group, because as we see in 2020, we needed a support group, and you need your family. And without your family, all the other stuff doesn't mean anything, whether it be fame, fortune, whatever. I mean, how many times have you heard someone who's really rich, whether it be an actor, a singer, an athlete, professional athlete, somebody that is of celebrity status, and they're alone, and what happens to them? More often than not, unfortunately, either they end their lives accidentally or suicidally. So you need family, you need a support group. That's what that really means. You need support.
It's funny because knowing you, that comes from your dad from a long time ago. And I know that we'll get to that too, because there's somebody who's special to you, especially me, I want to talk about as we go on into this interview. Mm-hmm. Tell me, how deep is the acting bug for you?
Oh, it's been something I've always wanted to do when I was younger. Funny story. This is going back, I'm showing my age, but I watched a movie right after, I believe it was right after my dad passed away, in 1976 or 77, I think it was. It was a movie called Bugsy Malone with Jodie Foster and Scott Baio. And I watched that movie. It was about took place in the 1920s, and it was about all of the prohibition stuff, and they were all gangsters and they had Tommy guns, but they were all the actors were kids. So there was no adults in the entire movie. And the Tommy guns shot little marshmallow things, so you had covered in marshmallow. It was a cute little movie that, as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, it was funny. Yeah. And I just saw it. God, it was so fun to watch the movie and to see these kids laughing and stuff. I was like, that's something I've always wanted to do. Fast forward 30, 35 years later, 40 years later, whatever it may be, I'm doing Orange is the New Black, and my director is Jodie Foster.
How about that?
And I went up to her and I was speaking. She was wonderful. She was amazing. I went up to her and I told her the same story, which I just said. I said, you're one of the reasons why I got into acting, because of, as a child, I watched this movie and how so much fun it was. And she can see, I says, I don't know if, I know you really don't even know me. And she stopped me. She's like, no, Warren, I believe what you're telling me. And I'm very touched by it. And this is, I believe you. And thank you so much for sharing that story. She says, I probably haven't heard that movie in 30, 40 years. And she was so nice to me. I mean, and, but I mean, it's just a sidebar, answering your question. I've always wanted to do it. Then it went away. My life went in a different direction like everybody else. Your life just doesn't go down the path you think it's going to go. Right. And I'm loving the fact that I got to learn the beautiful game of football, because it instills things in you that you can use in your life later on in years, which Absolutely. Is what I do when I'm doing my acting. Mm-hmm. I went down the road of, in sports, I was a jock. I played football, I played hockey, played baseball. And as you know, I come from a football family, athletic family. I played the sport. I wound up coaching the sport. I loved it dearly. I coached it over 25 years, almost 30 years. Right. I miss it. I loved it. I'm not ashamed to say I was good at it, and I was successful with it, not just on a personal level, but just, developing relationships and helping kids and pointing them in the direction. And the most satisfaction I ever got out of coaching football was to know that all my kids would graduate grammar school, if I was coaching at the Pop Warner level, or high school, and get them into college and have a life, have a career, and do things. And
Mhm.
that was my job as a football coach. I mean, listen, every kid who comes to play when they're young, they want to play in the NFL.
Of course.
And obviously it's like 1%, if that, of kids that play, Pop Warner, high school, college, go on to the NFL. Less than 1% actually get to play in the NFL.
Right.
Don't quote me on that.
No, I got you. Trust me, I understand.
So
tell me,
good.
Tell me about your marketing for when you act. You're in a lot of current productions, right? Gotham, Orange is the New Black, Bull. What do you do to market yourself to get into these productions?
Well, obviously with the internet, it's so much easier than it was even 10, 15 years ago. But you get out of, I tell people, because I mentor actors, I teach them and I'll coach them and I'll get them started. Actors who are younger than me, older than me, it doesn't make a difference. Novice actors. And it's really about, it's your career. No matter what you're doing, it's your career. You get out of it what you put into it. If you have a career, not a job is one thing. If you have a career and your career is controlled by you, so to speak, and you want to get yourself out there, be it through social media. And, I have Instagram, I have Facebook, I have Twitter. I'm on a couple of the other ones too, but those are the main three. I mean, those are the big three that everybody uses.
Right.
I have other ones too. You have the WhatsApp stuff and, but those are just for conversations and video chats if I need them, like we're doing here in Zoom. But it's important to put yourself out there. And I think the most important thing when you're branding yourself is being positive and putting positive stuff out there, because it's so easy on any social media platform to be negative, whether you want to attack politics, whether you want to attack racism, whether you want to attack, sexism, or whatever it may be. It's just so easy to do that. And it gets to the point, and it's just my opinion. It doesn't necessarily mean it's right. But for me, it gets to a point where it becomes noise. And it just, not that it's not important. I'm not downplaying what's going on in the world today. Believe me when I tell you, I am fully aware of what's happening today. But it gets to the point where if you just keep getting beat over the head with it, it's so I make a point of it, is I do not politicize anything on my social media. I do not talk about anything political at all. I won't. I don't. And that's just my opinion. I don't bash people. If they're left, if they're right, if they're middle, if they're independent, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. You are your own person. Those are your beliefs. If your belief is one and mine is the other and we're friends, we're still friends.
Right.
If you don't want to be my friend because we have different views, then you were never my friend.
Exactly.
That's the way I look at it. I was brought up in we're both around the same age. I was brought up where it's my prerogative to, and again, I know we're getting a little political, but I don't want to get political.
That's all right.
It's my prerogative to vote for who I vote for. And if I don't want to share it with you, that's my prerogative. That's my right as a person. So if I voted for Biden and you like Trump, that's none of your business. It doesn't make a difference.
But you make a good point, because you alienate people when you do that.
Correct.
Right? And the job that you may have gotten, you won't get simply because you expressed your views. That's
another thing too. I was just going to get there.
Yeah.
My manager and my agent told me when all this stuff started going on about 2 years ago, to stay off of social media politically, because there are people out there that will watch what you type out there on social media,
right,
that are in my profession as an actor, casting directors, producers, other actors, and they'll see where you stand.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, you could forfeit a job because of it.
That's something.
And it's terrible, I guess, if you want to say away, but I've never been a political person, never have been. Maybe we should all take more action of what's going on in the country today, but it's just who I am. And some people are more politically active, and great for them. I applaud them. We need those people. We really and truly do. But that's just not who I am.
Understood. Have you turned down any roles?
I turned down one role a long time ago when I first started, only for the simple fact I just was not comfortable doing the role. because of the fact of the sexual nature of it.
Okay.
I wasn't ready for it as an actor to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I would take the role.
Okay.
I just wasn't ready for it because I was not comfortable in my own skin, so to
Okay.
speak, as an actor.
That's
And
interesting.
yeah, as as an actor, the one thing they teach you when you first start training and going to school and taking courses or whatever you're doing, if you're in a studio or college, is you have to allow yourself as an actor to basically metaphorically allow yourself to be completely naked up on stage or in front of the camera, whatever it is that you're doing.
Okay.
That, metaphorically speaking, obviously.
Sure.
And so I learned that later on after acting for quite a few years and going into studios and learning more about the craft. I thought I just was another pretty face, so to speak, with green eyes that could act. And there's more to it than that. And I realized and I learned that I was not as good as I thought I was when I first started.
Now, you just created a great segue to my next question. So what tools do you need as an actor to succeed or survive?
Number one is confidence, obviously.
Okay.
You have to have confidence in your ability. Number two, you have to accept failure. Because probably I'm going to say, and I'm pulling numbers out of the air here, but by my experience, you're probably going to fail 90% of the time when you go to audition. I don't mean fail, meaning not book a job. It's not a failure, but you're not going to book 90% of the jobs that you read for. And that's really, if you really break it down, it may even be higher than that. Someone could be even higher, 90, 95%. But if you really think about it, in baseball, if you're right 30% of the time, you're a Hall of Famer.
That's true.
If you think about that.
True.
Not that I'm comparing acting to hitting a baseball, which is one of the hardest things in the world to do. But I'm just saying, but there's power in numbers, as they say. But I have to be confident. You have to be confident in your ability. You have to be able to accept failure.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be downs. There's going to be a lot of lows, but you have to be able to fight for those lows to get to those highs. And when the thing is, it's like anything else. And again, going back to football, because we both have that background, you practice the play over and over again in practice. And sometimes it doesn't work. The players don't know what they're doing. But when it happens in the game and it works, there's not a greater feeling in the world knowing that you practice that to get to this point. And then for it to work, to score a touchdown, to win a game, to get a sack, whatever it may be. It's the same thing. The more and more you put into your craft, the more satisfaction you'll get out of it when you do get that break. Everybody says in acting, oh, I'm going to be discovered. I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be rich and famous. If you go into this field of acting and you're going to be famous and you're going to be rich, is that what you're going to do? You're probably going to fail. You can't go into it as you can't think as an artist, as a pure artist. Yes, I mean, listen, we all want to make a living doing a career, whatever it is that we're doing. No one wants to do this for free. But I didn't get into it saying, oh, I want to be, rich and famous. All the other stuff, the rich, famous, celebrity status, whatever you may be, that will all come in, on its own time when the time is right and when you are ready to deal with it.
Okay.
I think too many people jump in saying, oh, someone's going to discover me. I always tell people, it's not going to find you. You have to find it.
What's the difference between being in New York and being in LA? I mean, you're a New Yorker. You're I'm going to say, quote, you're from the Bronx, right?
Yeah, I'm from the Bronx. Still here, living in the Bronx.
Right. So what's the difference between being in New York and acting compared to being in LA? Is it a different track?
I love LA. I've been out to LA a few times for work. I love it out there. I don't know if I'm built to live out there full time. I've spent some time out there. I would go out there for jobs. I could live out there if I had to for, a couple of months, a year, whatever it is. If I want a big project, a long project that's working out there. The weather is great, obviously, much better now. I mean, right now, when we're talking, I'm taking out 2020 because right now everywhere is
I understand that.
But the weather's great. The food is much more healthier for you. It's a different lifestyle. It's a slower lifestyle.
What about the quality of work?
That's what I was going to get. Yeah, I will tell you this. It's so funny because I have a friend of mine, and he's actually my mentor. His name is Michael Galante. Very, very, very dear friend of mine. We met years ago. He's one of the reasons I really went for the acting thing when I started. He helped me out and he mentored me. He's originally from New York, and he's out in LA, and he likes it out there, but he misses New York. But in answer to your question, the difference is because in New York, because New York City, for people who don't live in New York City is actually, as big as it is, it's very small, meaning the city itself, meaning basically Manhattan, Brooklyn, where most of this stuff is being filmed in New York and parts of the Bronx. But more importantly, like the casting and everything else, and some of the studios, they're down in the city. So it's a small area. So on any given day, an average New York actor hustling will probably do 2 to 3 auditions in a day. Maybe you'll get 5 or 6 or 7 in a week. In LA, because everything's spread out, you probably won't get as many because of the way everything's all structured. And if you don't drive, and in New York you don't need to drive, you just get around town either by a taxi or by subway or by bus. And the one thing, and I'm not listen, I have friends, very dear friends that are from LA and LA actors, and they're very successful. This is not, I'm not pigeonholing anybody, but on a whole, New York actors are hungrier. They'll go the extra yard. The training in New York is different than LA. Not that it's bad in LA. I'm not knocking LA.
Right. Not that one is better than the other, but you're saying it's different.
But it's a different animal. A New York actor is a different animal. New York actors, most that go out to LA, will do better than LA actors that come to New York to get work.
That's really interesting.
And again, my opinion, I don't have facts on it, but just knowing people in the industry, as many people that I know and talk to and speak with and understand their experiences, that's what I've come up with. Because New York actors are just hungrier. They're going to do the extra work to get to work. I mean, New Yorkers and everything are just a little bit more hungrier.
We're a little bit more hungrier than the rest of the country. I get it.
How it is.
You're right about that.
And I'm not knocking the rest of the country. Anybody who's watching that's not from New York, I'm not being biased. I'm not saying
well, you know what? You don't have to say it. I'll say it. I think you can put a New Yorker anywhere and they'll survive, but not everyone can come to New York and survive.
Oh, you said that.
About that. I know you didn't say it. I'm saying it. So you can write me. You can write me all the hate mail. Want to talk about the Morris Park Lions?
Oh, wow.
You changed a lot of lives with that, man. That's a community-based youth football program, Pop Warner program. And I know you did some high school ball too, but you changed a lot of lives with the Morris Park Lions. Can you tell the audience a little about that and how that started?
First of all,
and also segue into your dad, because your dad did the same thing with the Pelham Spartans, whom transparency I played for a long time ago. So go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you for that compliment. I appreciate that. As far as changing young lives, I mean, I really appreciate that. That's one of the best compliments I could get as any coach could get. The Morris Park Lions. When I originally left, when I lived over at Fordham, that's where I grew up as a kid, in Fordham Road in the Bronx. And my dad was coaching at Our Lady of Mercy. He coached the Terriers and the Bulldogs, where my brother also went to school, and he played there. I played for the Terriers, but I didn't go to OLM. I went to a different school. And then when we moved from Fordham over into Morris Park, because my dad was dying of cancer. And obviously I didn't know this because I was a kid. And so we moved over to Morris Park to get out of the Fordham section, because it was really becoming very dangerous to live there at the time. Yeah. Co-op City went up, and all the doctors and lawyers and everybody else that was the upper class, so to speak, that was living on a concourse, all ran over to Co-op City, because that was supposed to be like the big thing in the Bronx at that time. I'm talking early mid 70s.
Right.
So what happened was all the low income housing came into effect, the whole thing, and it became a very, very difficult place to live. Mm-hmm. When my father was dying, he didn't want to die and have us being stuck there. So we rented a house over in Morris Park. I went to St. Francis Xavier High School at that time. St. Francis Xavier had the St. Francis Xavier Lions, which years ago they were a Lion team that was in the BUA, which is like the equivalent to high school football, which is how my father was he was involved in the Pelham Spartans, which was called BUA, which is the Bronx Umpires Association, which actually back in the day, for people who from New York, that was actually bigger than high school football was back in the 60s and 70s, 10 times bigger than it was. Over time, high schools, overtook it. Now it's extinct. There's no more, sandlot football, as they call it. So I moved there. I went to St. Francis Xavier, and I played. I went to try out for the local school football team, which is the Francis Xavier Lions. One of the coaches was this guy by the name of Mike Paris-Gondola, who actually played for the Spartans and played for my dad. Now, my brother, who also played for the Spartans, knew Mike Paris-Gondola, and as I was playing, he became friends with Mike Paris-Gondola and came onto the staff and coached. As I got older and went to high school, I was helping out. My brother was coaching. Paris-Gondola couldn't do it anymore. I know I'm leaving other people. Ralph Del Vecchio also was wanted to coach Cardinal Spellman High School. He was involved in it also. So my brother, as a kid, I think he was maybe 19 at the time, maybe 20. He was given a Pop Warner local, football team to run, and they were called the St. Francis Xavier Lions.
At 19?
Yes.
Wow.
And 1920, maybe. And my brother, like I said, was doing that, and he didn't really know much about running a football program. A good football player. My brother was a better athlete than I ever was, and he started doing that. And I was 15, maybe 16 now at the time, 15 maybe, and I was helping him out. I was in high school, but I was helping him coach his Pop One. And then we became the Morris Park Lions because we broke away from the school, because at that time you could only have people in the school play for the team. That's how it was back then. Okay. Now, because everything was branching out, it was much tougher. We became the Morris Park Lions, and now we were getting kids from St. Francis Xavier, St. Clair, St. Dominic's, all over the area, Pelham Parkway, Parkchester, all over. And now we were becoming, we're becoming a bigger organization. Right. And instead of having one team, we had 3 teams. We still have one team, then we went to 2 teams, then we went to 3 teams. And we used to play everything out of Van Cortlandt Park, which is over in Broadway, over in the Kingsbridge section. That was the home base of all Bronx football, probably for 50 years.
For a long time, right?
Yeah, very long time. And we played there for a number of years. And then that league kind of like broke up. There was a lot of problems with Bronx football. They weren't getting as many kids. And so then we went out to a league out in Jersey, which is very strange to go out in Jersey with a bunch of kids from the Bronx. And we went out there and, we got our butts kicked. I mean, it was big time football out there. It's almost like equivalent to like what high school football was at the time, in New York City. I mean, a couple hundred people come to games. I mean, it was a big deal. They took their, because they would separate into towns. You had Rivervale, you had Oradell, you had, Hillsdale, Little Ferry, all these towns that this was like the big thing for them. And these were all feeder programs to their local high schools. Okay. So, I mean, they were very, very well coached.
Right.
So we went out there and, we got our butts kicked for a couple of years, and it made us better football coaches. And I think the thing that made us different than everybody else, and this is one of the things that I noticed, not at the time, but looking back, is that whenever we coached anywhere against somebody, most of them were quote unquote daddy coaches.
Okay.
You know what I mean by that? In other words, their parents were coaching because their kid was on a team.
Right.
Where majority of our coaches were not daddy coaches. We were coaching football because we loved football and we loved working with the kids. Some people didn't even have kids on the team or have kids at all. And so I think that's what made us different than everybody else. And I mean, I could talk to you for 6 hours about the whole growth of the Morris Park Lions.
Oh, sure. I know that. And I'll say this, and I told you this before, there were 3 programs that I modeled the Bronx Rebels youth football after. Yours was definitely one of them, without question. I definitely want to I've only got a couple of minutes left. I definitely there's a name that I want to shout out to you that, and I met this gentleman back at DeWitt Clinton knowing that he was such a big star at Clinton, but I didn't know that he was really involved with you guys until later on as Lenny Rochester.
Lenny Rochester.
Yeah, I know you miss him. He was a big deal with your program.
I
Tell
miss
us a little
him
about Lenny. His picture's probably going up right now as we're talking.
I miss him terribly. Lenny was an older gentleman. You know, we were like I said, we were all in our teens, 20s, maybe early 30s at the time. And Lenny was, you know, was in his, I want to say Lenny was in his late 40s, early 50s when he came on. He was definitely the elder statesman of the staff. And I coached with Lenny. My first team I ever coached without my brother was me and Lenny. We coached, you know, the younger Bantam team, the younger kids. And Lenny was always a voice of reason. And he was always very calm. And he was a very, very funny man, a very beloved man. I mean, if anybody ever said a bad thing about Lenny, they didn't know him. And getting to know Lenny, and for people that know, he played for Clinton back in I think he played in the 50s.
In the 50s and 60s, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they called him Lenny Sidelines. And he was skinny as a rail. And once he got around the edge, he went down. You couldn't get him because he was that fast. And Lenny was just, I mean, I get choked up. I mean, Lenny's gone a long time. Lenny's been gone over 20 years. And I still think about him. And I know that the Mars Park Lions, as successful as we were, would not have been as successful without a guy like Lenny Rochester. And he was not a frontline guy. He was always a background guy. He wasn't about the limelight. He was about the kids. And he was very, you know, and he taught us things that, you know, that I carried on and taught. And to this day, I still use, you know, as far as, but I love Lenny Rochester to death, and I'm not ashamed. And you know what's great about that, Ray? And real quick, I know we have to go pretty soon, is that back then it was so different because Lenny didn't look at you as a black football player, as a white football player, as an Hispanic football player. He looked at you as a football player.
Right.
And he never, ever, ever brought race into it. And it was so easy to do, but he never did it. And if you brought it in, whether it be you, whether it be me, he would get upset with you, whichever angle you came from. No. We don't do that here. That's not us. We're a family. You know you are? You're blue because you wear lion blue. That's who you are. You know, like Tommy Lasorda, Dodger blue, you know,
right.
The Yankees, you bleed pinstripe. That was Lenny Rochester. And that's what made Lenny such a unique individual. And he taught me a lot.
He taught a lot of people a lot of things. Any new projects for you coming up that we should look out for?
Right now, it's a pandemic going on. I haven't worked. Last time I worked was back in March. I was doing an off-Broadway play, and we got shut down. And actually, about a week later, I got coronavirus. And but I'm okay now, thank God. But I mean, I've been auditioning. I'm working on a couple of things that I'm not at liberty really to say yet. But I've been auditioning for some TV shows and some movies, and I'm working on a couple of plays that maybe will branch out, maybe be a Zoom broadcast. I'll be sure to let you know and invite you if I can, and have you come on. But I'm awesome. Keeping busy. I mean, I still mentor people. I do improv classes. I do a lot of things.
One last question for you. Advice for any new or young or even older actors, someone trying to get into the game. What would you tell them, particularly with COVID going on?
Study. Learn the craft. Don't take shortcuts. Shortcuts lead to long cuts. That's what I always tell people. Do things the right way. Right now it's a little different. Taking classes online, acting classes online are a little different than being there, but take them anyway. Acting is a muscle, and you have to really flex that muscle and train that muscle to do certain things. And you're not going to be able to do that by sitting home and just watching TV. If you want to watch TV, you want to watch some of your favorite TV shows, watch some of the actors, watch the choices that they make, because acting is just not about just reading your lines. You have to make a choice on how to portray that character and bring that character to life. The writer, writes the character and creates the character on paper. It's my job to bring that character off the paper into life, into your living room, or movie theater, or wherever it is that it is, or a play, on stage. You have to bring that to life. So you have to train and learn things. There's a lot of different techniques out there for acting. There's not just one way of doing it. Mm-hmm. Memorizing lines is not acting. That's a small margin of what it is, but there's more to it than that.
a lot of what you said, Warren, tonight carries over into business in so many different ways. I want to thank you for the time and opportunity that we've had to speak. This is Coach Ray from Coach Ray Speaks. Thank you to Warren Bug. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ray. I appreciate you. God bless.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, I've been on the road to riches, hitting every bump on every avenue. Hit the ceiling glass and I've been crashing through. Coach Ray put me onto the plays. Every episode played got me ready for the game. Coach Ray Speaks. 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 Coach Ray Speaks.